for joining us. Okay, awesome. We're recording now. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I want to say it again, Keisha, thank you so much for partnering with us on this and having us here today. And of course, thank you to everybody who joined. Welcome. My name is Jimmy Morgan. I'm the Partnerships Manager for Study Smart Tutors and Hatching Results, and we're really excited to be with you here today and hopefully provide some valuable information on the topic at hand here, empowering, data is not a four-letter word, using data effectively. Okay, I see we slightly changed the title, sorry. So you can spend more time with students. Okay, so next slide. Today we're going to talk about a few different things. First, you can see we're going to talk about today's role of the school counselor. Then we're going to introduce some new data courses for school counselors. And finally, we'll talk about some different professional learning pathways for counselors. Go next slide. On the webinar today, we do have people from both Study Smart Tutors and Hatching Results. As you can see, Study Smart Tutors provides support to first-generation students, teachers, counselors, administrators, families, and college access programs. And Hatching Results, for over 2 decades now, has been providing professional learning and professional development to support school counselor programs. So I will introduce you here quickly to our panelists here, our facilitators. I'll let them introduce themselves. So Mindy, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Willard. I am the Director of Outreach and Engagement for Hatching Results. I've been with our company about a year and a couple of months. Prior to that, I was in a similar role to probably many of you. I was the coordinator of school counseling for the Madison Metropolitan School District in sunny, warm Madison, Wisconsin. Before that, I was a K-8 counselor in Phoenix and a high school counselor in Milwaukee. So I've run the gamut, K-12 all the way through district office when it comes to school counseling. Also, former ASCA School Counselor of the Year, and I've been very involved in a lot of my state school counseling associations. I'm curious, can you drop in the chat? I think we have a lot of district coordinators and directors, but I would love to say, to see what your roles are to make sure that we are meeting your needs. So if you could drop in the chat what your role is, and then we'll have Julia introduce herself.
Beautiful.
And Julia, I just want to jump in quickly. Do we have the right slide presentation? Because this is saying Nevada.
Yeah, I'm in one that says North Carolina, Julia. So you might...
Right, I'm sorry. I think I did the mistake. Yeah, you are right.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and fix it in a second when we hop in the Mentimeter. I'll go ahead and introduce myself.
Sorry about that,
I am with the Study Smart Tutors. I work as a VP of Education, been with the Study Smart more than 4 years, and I'm a former high school counselor. I did about 8 years high school counseling in a Title I school in Santa Ana, Orange County. Super excited to be here. Super excited to get to know you, listen to you, and hear your thoughts, and having a great time in here.
All right. So I see we have some school counselors in the room. We've got some coordinators. Fabulous. I love seeing you all here. All right. Awesome. So we're curious, Jimmy, are you doing this one or?
Oh, it doesn't matter. You can do it if you'd like.
Let's check in. How are we doing today on this Thursday morning, almost it's afternoon for you all in the East Coast. Check what your battery is and let me know in the chat how you're feeling today. Are you feeling great? Are you kind of meh, kind of empty? That'll let us know what kind of energy to bring for y'all. Awesome. I see some great. Hungry, Tracy. I feel you. I'm there. It's lunchtime. Well, you all are welcome to eat while we're talking. A little meh. All right. Is the sun shining in North Carolina at least? I hope so. It's pretty dreary here in Wisconsin right now. A little chance of rain. So it always makes it not sunny. Rainy there too. All right. All right. Well, we're all in that cozy kind of mood here today. So we'll keep that in mind as we move through our session today. All right. Go ahead, Julia. Thanks. All right. So our plan today, we're going to talk a little bit about why it's really important for school counselors to use data in their school counseling programs to help them move their programs from random acts of guidance to constantly chasing our tails, being reactive all the time, to being more proactive and more intentional within our programs. And we know that in order for school counselors to do that, many of them need professional learning around how to use data. We weren't trained very well, although I know there's some good grad programs in North Carolina. So some of you were probably trained really well in grad programs around how to use data in your programs, but many counselors across the country struggle with data. So we're going to talk about some opportunities for you to tap into some professional learning for counselors. I'm going to give you some nuggets of information today, and we'll talk about some resources, tools, and guides that can support you along that path. So, all right, let's talk about a common understanding of the role of the school counselor. Go ahead, Julia. We know that good things are happening in school counseling. If you've been around, I've been a school counselor for about 20 years. Tell me in the chat, how many years have you been in this work? Let me know who I'm working with here. We know the Ask a National model came out about 20 years ago. We celebrated our 20th anniversary this summer. And we know that in recent years, school counseling has really been on the forefront. If you've been around, you know, Michelle Obama was talking about the work that we do. Many of our counselor colleagues have had a chance to meet her. We were involved with Reach Higher and Better Make Room and other initiatives in the White House in Washington, D.C. We know that many states have passed legislation around school counseling to get students more access to school counselors and for school counselors to spend more time doing counseling and less time doing some of those non-counseling duties. We know that right now our students are struggling with mental health. And so a lot of districts are talking about school counselors and the work that we do around mental health and how we can better support our students in mental health. I know when I started 20 years ago, I was the only one in my school talking about social emotional learning. Back then, we called it personal social development, if you remember that. And when it came to talking about those things, it was me. I went into classrooms and did those lessons, but teachers, it wasn't common language for them. And now it is common language within our buildings and in our districts. And that's fabulous that more people are recognizing the importance of social emotional learning, and it's not falling just on the shoulders of school counselors. We know now that data is more accessible. Again, when I started 20 years ago, trying to get an attendance report run from my student information system or getting access to data was near impossible. It was really hard. And we know that that's still a struggle in some districts. But in many districts, those student information systems have evolved. And sometimes with the click of a button or a few buttons, we're able to run some of those data reports. And we know that MTSS, or we're going to talk today about MTMDSS, is very prevalent in our schools. And that is directly aligns to the Ask a National model and school counseling and what we do as counselors. So we'll talk about some of this today, but there's a lot of great things happening. I love seeing your years of experience. Thanks for sharing that in the chat, y'all. That's great. All right, Julia. So while a lot of great things have been happening, there's still a lot of pressure and challenges around the growth of the school counseling profession. There's still a lot of confusion about what we do, confusion about our role, confusion about our impact, and a lot of stress and pressures put on us. So we're going to do a quick little Mentimeter. Julia put a link in the chat there. What are some of those continued pressures that are getting in the way of us being the best school counselors that we can be, or leading the best comprehensive programs that we could lead in our schools? Well, you should all be able to click that link and start typing in what some of those pressures are that create that confusion. Yeah. I'm assuming the resource schedule is kind of one of the rotations. Kids go to art, music, PE, and counseling. Doing that makes it really hard to reach every kid in the building and to be available sometimes. It is a great opportunity to get to know all the students, but it's a tough commitment to follow through on for sure. It keeps us away. Lack of clarity. I would even, there's lack of clarity by leadership and even amongst our colleagues. If you ask one school counselor what their role is and you ask another school counselor across town, they're going to give you a whole different answer. So even among our colleagues, we have some role confusion. Lack of time. So many non-counseling duties. Our schools are short-staffed right now. And that's a coast to coast issue. And so school counselors, because we're not assigned to a classroom with students all day, we get pulled in multiple directions to help fill in, which takes us away from doing the counseling work, right? I see in the chat 504 coordinating. More and more students have 504s. And so in many districts, counselors are the folks that people point to coordinate that. Different agendas, political things that are happening right now across our country is definitely something that is impacting our school counseling programs. Whatever the political environment is where you are, it definitely impacts our schools. Inappropriate roles, too many responsibilities. So yeah, I mean, we could do this all day, y'all, right? There's a lot of things that are, being the expert on all the things, right? It's tough. A lot of these things are definitely getting in the way of us progressing as a profession. Thanks, Julia. Go ahead. Yeah. Great ideas, everyone. Thank you. Well, I'm not here to tell you that I have the answer or that I have the solution. I'm here to tell you that I've been there and I feel it with you all for sure. But we're going to talk to you about maybe some ways to try to get out of this cycle of reactivity that we're stuck in as an education system across the nation. So these challenges are kind of a big part of getting in the way of what we do. And when we ask, like I said, even when we ask our colleagues, so what does the school counselor do? The whole gamut runs. Some people still use the G word, you guys, like, oh my gosh. And so that tells me immediately when someone refers to themselves as a guidance counselor that we are probably not on the same page as far as what our work is and what our role is within our own profession with our colleagues. There's so many different answers when we ask about what the school counselor does. And that creates some of that confusion. Go ahead. So these are some of the things you shared. There's a lack of a common understanding by other people and by ourselves. We have an inconsistent public image, right? You turn on the media. I just started watching Friday Night Lights. It's on Netflix these days, and I had never watched it. I actually met Connie Britton, and I'd never seen Friday Night Lights, so I'm watching it now. And there's some truth to her role, but she does call herself the G word. But we also know there's other things in the public that talk about school counselors in a poor light, and often we're the butt of jokes sometimes when folks talk about their guidance counselor back in the day told them this or that. Again, differing roles from district to district and almost school to school. Even in the districts that I worked in when I was in Phoenix, my role was very much aligned to what I was trained to do. I got into classrooms. I did small group lessons. I did individual counseling. I did those things. But my colleague across the street at a different school was pretty much doing like social work. He was trying to help students and families find food and clothing. And he really lived in that tier 3 world of doing one-on-one counseling. So even within the same district, there are some differing roles and expectations of school counselors. And we know also state to state, there's some different legislation around who can be a school counselor and what the requirements are to be a school counselor. And those are all of the things that continue to create some confusion for us and others about the work that we do. So one thing though that should be keeping us grounded and hopefully keeps you all grounded is we have a framework that we can build our programs around. The Ask a National model is not new. Like we said, we are celebrating the 20th anniversary. The founder of Hatching Results, Dr. Trish Hatch, is one of the original co-authors of the Ask a National model. And Dr. Judy Bowers, who I was trained by, formerly from Arizona. She's passed away since, but they are the original authors of the Ask a National model, which came about in 2002. And so this model provides a framework for us. It provides a plate for us to be able to be intentional and to be proactive in our counseling programs so that we're not constantly chasing our tails and being reactive or doing random acts of counseling. Now, I know some of these components are easier to apply than others, and day to day, it's tough sometimes to live and breathe the Ask a National model, but using data to drive your program is really, really important. That helps us to really find those kids who need us before the kids come knocking on our door, before the parents or the teachers refer them. We use data to find those students. We use data to help us determine if our interventions are even working. How many times have we worked with a student or a group of students and we're not even sure if we're hitting the mark or not? Data helps us know that, yeah, this intervention worked. I'm going to do it again. Or, oh, no, this one did not work. I'm going to tweak it and change it, or I'm going to stop doing it altogether. Data helps us advocate for our role. It helps us go and talk to our principal about all the recess duty that we're doing or all the 504 coordination we're doing. When we track our time with data, we can use that as an advocacy tool to have that conversation. When you bring data to those conversations, it takes away from the counselors just whining about doing all of these extra things that they don't want to do. We have the numbers to back it up. So data is what remains consistent as the Ask a National model has changed over the years. Again, those of you that have been around, you know, every couple of years they update it because education is a continuous improvement project, right? We are constantly learning and growing as more research comes out and as our society changes. So the one thing that remains consistent with the Ask a National model over all of the 20 years is data and outcomes. And that's what Hatching Results specializes in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how we use data this afternoon. ASCA has a lot of great resources when it comes to the power of school counselors. There's a lot of research out there that effective school counselors with strong comprehensive school counseling programs make a big difference in the lives of students. Those research studies are linked here. ASCA has several more. I would encourage you to become familiar with these. Again, when we do need to go and advocate for more time with kids and to do more counseling with kids, having the research behind us is really helpful. So check these out. And this isn't anything that you all don't know. I'm preaching to the choir here. You're school counselors. You know that when we get to do what we're trained to do, we're going to make a big impact in our schools. All right. So some of you might be familiar with this framework that we call it multi-tiered, multi-domain system of supports. So on a scale of 0 to 5, fist to 5 in the chat, tell me how familiar are you with MTMDSS? A fist would be, what is this? I have no idea. Sounds like alphabet soup. 5, get out of my way, Mindy. Let me explain this to everyone. Drop in the chat what you know about this. Is that a lot of fists?
I think fist is the 0.
Yeah.
And then the
0 to
5.
5. What do you know about MTMDSS, y'all?
Yeah, 1
Who's
to
gonna
5.
help me know how deeply to go right now? Thanks. There we go. 4, 5, 4. All right. This isn't new to a lot of you. And it's okay if it is new. It's okay. So no shame, no blame here. All right. Fabulous. Well, this tells me, and then we got, okay. All right. So what MTMDSS is, many of you are familiar and your districts probably use MTSS. I would assume multi-tiered system of supports. MTMDSS is MTSS through the lens of comprehensive school counseling. MTSS typically involves academic interventions, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and many schools then start adding behavioral or social emotional tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. PBIS falls under this category as well. A lot of the PBIS work you're doing falls under tier 1 social emotional, right? So to bring it into light with school counseling, we add that college and career component to it. And so we are also tiering our supports and our services through college and career. This is not different than the Ask a National model. They're both created by the same person. This is more of the deliver and the assess components of the Ask a National model. So we're going to watch a quick video here of Dr. Trish Hatch explaining MTMDSS. And as Julia sets that up, I'll tell you, if you have a principal that's not familiar, when you say comprehensive school counseling or you say Ask a National model and their eyes glaze over, this resonates with them because they know MTSS. So when we share this video or we talk about MTMDSS, it clicks for them and it makes sense because they know what MTSS is. So, all right, Julia, go ahead.
Trish Hatch, and today we're going to talk about the multi-tiered, multi-domained system of supports, or MTMDSS. As educators, we're familiar with the multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS, which focuses on students' academic and behavioral needs. But for school counselors who focus on 3 domains, academic, college and career, and social emotional development, we need a more robust system. We need a multi-tiered, multi-domained system of supports, or MTMDSS. In MTMDSS, school counselors ensure that all students receive the instruction and support they need to grow academically, develop socially and behaviorally, and to prepare for post-secondary options. In this system, Activities, instruction, and intervention services are grouped into tiers, ranging from Tier 1 services, a core program of universal supports that apply to everyone, to Tier 2 services, or targeted interventions, which would typically only apply to approximately 20% of students. And finally, to Tier 3 services, intentional interventions, which would typically apply to between 5 and 10% of students. MTMDSS provides a data-driven approach to determining which of these levels of interventions or tiers are appropriate for any individual student. Under MTMDSS, Tier 1 encompasses agreed-upon services that all students receive, such as standards and competency-based school counselor core curriculum lessons, individual student planning, which includes 4- and 6-year academic and post-secondary plans, and district and school-wide agreed-upon activities and events. Tier 1 is designed to be comprehensive, preventative, developmental, and proactive. Tier 2 is designed for students who are exhibiting barriers to learning, struggling academically, or are deserving of additional supports. It uses data-based decision-making to select at-risk indicators such as attendance, behavior, credit deficiency, and post-secondary readiness data. Targeted intervention data elements, grade levels, and timeframes are queried to determine which students qualify for interventions. Depending on the student, Tier 2 interventions may include short-term individual or small group counseling, progress monitoring, consultation, collaboration, and/or referrals to resources within or outside the school building. Tier 3 services are designed for students experiencing emergency or crisis response events, or to support students with needs that remain unresolved within Tier 2. School counselors provide short-term, solution-focused counseling, consultation, and when appropriate, referral to additional resources. Over time, MTMDSS allows school counselors to spend more time implementing proactive Tier 1 action plans and less time engaged in reactive Tier 2 and Tier 3 activities. The ultimate goal is to ensure all students achieve their greatest potential and graduate ready for post-secondary success.
All right. Some of you have probably seen this video before. It's linked here. You can also quickly find it on YouTube anytime you want to share that. But who else operates this way in your schools? Who else uses data to determine who needs more support? Drop it in the chat if you know. Some of you probably did this in your previous roles. I saw what your role was before. Admin. Teachers have been doing this for a long time, right? We teach a unit to students. We give them formative and summative assessments, and then we use that assessment to determine if the student understood it or not. If they didn't, then they might need a Tier 2 support. And so just like teachers and admin have been doing this for a long time, school counselors do this too. You're already doing this. If you're going into classrooms, teaching lessons, you're running small groups, you're doing individual counseling. You're already doing it. The piece that's probably missing for many of you is using data to inform that. And that was a struggle for me when I started as a school counselor. My small groups were not data driven. They were like I just had kids sign up. If they signed up, they got to be a part of a group, whether they needed it or not. If a 4th grader told me they needed a friendship group or their teacher did, they got to be in the group. But never once did I look at discipline referrals. Never once did I look at attendance data, or even grades data or test score data to determine who the students were that needed my support. When I started using that data, I was much more focused and intentional, and I went from running 10 groups simultaneously to 3 that were very data driven. Okay. And so using data also helps us know if our classroom lessons are having the impact that we think it's having. Again, are you doing lessons because you think it's fun, because it's, you know, it's fun to color this picture? Or are you not? Are you even prepared when you go into a class? Can't tell you how many times I went into a class 10 minutes before and I was like, oh shoot, I'm not prepared. We're going to read this book and we're going to color this sheet. And that was kind of my go-to. So we need to make sure we have data and we're proactive and prepared for our school counseling programs. And this model of MTMDSS really teaches you that. And some of our online courses that you'll learn about later breaks this down for you step by step. This is not things that most people were taught in grad school. I want to know if you were taught about how to use data and you in grad school, drop it in the chat and tell me where you went to grad school, because I want to make sure that we acknowledge those programs that are really embedding data into it. All right, Julia, go ahead. So this is a resource that we want to give to you, and Julia can drop it in the chat. We talked about MTMDSS, and it's a mapping tool for you. You can take this back to your district. All right, Western Carolina, woo woo. Standing out there. Thanks, Courtney. University of Memphis, fabulous. Great. So this MTMDSS tool helps you to go back to your district and start mapping out what is currently happening in my program at Tier 1 within each of the domains, what's happening in Tier 2 and what's happening in Tier 3. We even break it up into direct and indirect and different ways that we service students. The second page of that template, can you click on it for me, Julia? So the first is blank. You can make a copy of this for yourself. Sometimes we go back and do this even with our psych and our social worker, because a lot of their work overlaps with our work as well. And we use different colors for who's doing what. But the second page shows you examples of what this might look like. So as you make your own copy, you've got that second page with examples there. What we're finding, what I'm finding now, a lot of our counselors are living in Tiers 2 and Tier 3. Particularly after COVID, the last couple of years, we've had no choice but to be reactive because we didn't know what was walking through the door, and it was hard to be proactive and preventative. But we're 3 years out now. We know we should have known what was walking in our door in August. It was not a surprise to us. And so if you find that you are living in Tier 2 and Tier 3, you might need to start flipping that triangle back because it's upside down, flipping it the other way, doubling down on Tier 1. We know that when we have a strong Tier 1, that's where we work with all students. We're getting into classrooms, you're doing school-wide events and activities. We are going to spend less time in Tier 2 and Tier 3. And the role of the school counselor is to focus on Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 3 is predominantly something that we refer out to other folks, or if we're seeing students one-on-one over time, it's for a short-term amount of time, no more than 5 or 6 sessions. And if they need more than that, they go on to be referred to someone else. So this is a tool that can help and support you with that if you want to go back and do this activity at your school. Go ahead. So one of the things when we talk about professional development for school counselors, Dr. Julie Hartline, if you've ever had her speak or heard from her, she talks about the Ask a National model as a house. And I'm not going to go into the whole spiel that she does, but basically it's the framework of our house. The define, the deliver, those components of the Ask a National model are what keep us standing as school counselors. And oftentimes, though, I find that when it comes to professional development for school counselors, we tend to focus on topical things. Like these kids are dealing with a lot of anxiety. I need to learn more about anxiety. I need to learn more about anger management. I need to learn more about financial aid and FAFSA. I need to learn more about how to motivate students. And these are important things. They're really important for us. A lot of us learn some of this stuff in grad school, and that's the PD we tend to gravitate toward. It feels a little more fun or more applicable sometimes for school counselors. The areas where school counselors tend to shy away when it comes to PD is PD on data, right? It's not quite as sexy as PD on anger management and anxiety. But the data is what is going to give us more time with kids. So you can spend your time hanging the curtains in your house all you want, but if your foundation is sinking and you're hanging curtains, you're missing the mark. So if you're not getting PD around data, PD around building that foundation, you're probably struggling with working with every student in your building. You can go to anxiety training. I'm not telling you that's not important. It is important. But if you go to anxiety training and you're only allowed to work with students that have Tier 3 needs in your building, that anxiety training is great for 10 kids. But when you use data, you can take that anxiety training that you went to and use it for 500 kids in your building, because you're learning about systems. You're learning to create systems and use data to do more counseling with more students. So I'm going to highly encourage you, if you go to your conferences and you shy away from those sessions on the Ask a Model, you shy away from those sessions on data, start going to those, because they're going to help you create those systems to reach more kids. Go ahead, Julia. When we talk about the types of data that school counselors use, hopefully those of you that went to some good programs, you've heard about this, or if you've done Ask a Model training. School counselors use 3 types of data. Used to be called process, perception, and outcome data. ASCA in the 4th edition has changed those to participation data and mindsets and behaviors data, but essentially they're the same thing. We've just changed some language to make it more explicit. When we're designing our Tier 1 school counseling programming, we start with process data. I'm going to go into 5th grade. I'm going to teach this lesson on anger management on Friday for 30 minutes. Okay. Sometimes that's where we stop. I'm just going to do these lessons, and I'm not collecting any more data on it. I don't know if they're working or not, but I'm going to encourage you to go to the next step. Measure the perception data, the mindsets and behaviors data. Are you pre and post testing your students after your lessons? It doesn't have to be with every single lesson. Start with one lesson and just try it. Writing a pre and post test helps us to measure the knowledge, attitudes, and skills of our students. And when we can impact their knowledge, attitudes, and skills, they are more likely going to have a behavior change. So if I'm doing a lesson on anger management with 5th grade, I'm writing a pre and post test. What I'm hoping to change is the number of students. I want them to be able to calm down. I want them to be able to self-regulate, right? And why do I want that? The outcome data that I want to impact is office discipline referrals. I want to reduce the referrals in 5th grade. Or maybe I want to increase attendance rates because kids aren't coming to school because they're struggling with managing their emotions. So when we're building our Tier 1 programming, we start with process data and we work left to right. When we're building our Tier 2 programming, though, we start with the data. We run queries. I run attendance data every 6 weeks, and I identify the students that miss 10 or more days of school. That's starting with outcome data. Now I've got these students that miss 10 or more days of school. I'm going to work backwards. What's the behavior that I want to change? Well, I want them to come to school more. All right. What's getting in the way of that? Is it a knowledge, attitude, or skill? So now I'm going to build some sort of an intervention to impact their knowledge, attitudes, and skills. And then I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to meet with these kids on Thursdays at 1 o'clock for 45 minutes. Tier 2 is not always small group counseling. It might be check in, check out. It might be a one and done workshop or event. It doesn't have to always be the small group counseling that we were trained in grad school. But this is the type of data that school counselors are using: process, perception, and outcome data. If you don't have access to running those queries in your student information system on discipline, on achievement, on attendance, then I would encourage you to go back to your director, your coordinator, whoever you can, and find out how you can get access to running those queries, because that data is really important to school counselors. It's how we find the kids who need us before the kids and the families and the teachers come knocking on our door. All right. So I'm curious, tell me in the chat, what does professional learning look like in your district for school counselors? Do you get it? Some don't get PD at all. Maybe it's once a year. Maybe it's monthly PD. What does it look like? And is it unique to school counselors? Give you a second to think about that.
We can run it in the Mentimeter if it's a
that's
better
all right.
way to do that.
Oh, we can just drop it in the chat. That's okay. Sorry, Julie, I forgot that was a Mentimeter, but are we there? What's happening in your district? What I find, there we go. Thanks. Here we come. Monthly PD. That's great. Lots of PD offered in our district. Okay. Twice a year. Fabulous. Well, that seems great because you guys are getting some relevant professional development in your districts. I know there are some school counselors out there that do not get regular, relevant professional development. They are required to go to the same PD that teachers go to. Now, I'm not against that. I learned a lot as a school counselor by going to some of the PDs that my teachers went to, but some of that PD was very irrelevant to me. And my principal and I had a conversation about that. And we had a trusting relationship that if she said, I think this is really going to be impactful for you, I went. And if I said, this topic is not working for me and it doesn't impact the school counseling program, she trusted me. So I'm not saying you never go to the same PD as teachers, but what I'm saying is we've all seen this cartoon here. For a fair selection, everybody has to climb the tree, right? So just to be fair, you have to sit through this PD just like the 3rd grade teacher does. So I'm going to encourage you, if you don't have regular PD for yourself as a school counselor, or if you're a coordinator or district director and you're looking for some PD, please make sure that your school counselors are getting relevant professional development on data and how to use data in their programs, because this is an area that many school counselors struggle with. So one of those opportunities we're going to tell you about are some of the data courses that Hatching Results offers for school counselors. These are asynchronous courses that are designed by Dr. Trish Hatch and Dr. Julie Hartline. You'll actually see in a video in a minute that their faces pop up. And these are all aligned to our recent course, The Use of Data in School Counseling, 2nd edition. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jimmy and Julia to tell you more about our online courses.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mindy.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And it's always, your conversation takes me back my counseling years. And some people might feel overwhelmed. Some people say, oh, sounds great, but where do we start? This sounds great. Sounds awesome, but it is too much. Where to start? So I'll start with some little story. It was my first year in counseling, freshly graduated students. And like Mindy say, data was not one of my class. Well, still shout out to Concordia University, but data was not a focus for my grad school. I attended a workshop in Orange County Counselor. This is the first time I met with the Dr. Trish Hatch, was talking about this book and data and importance. And I got the book and I studied that book. And very honest, wasn't too excited to get another textbook when I finished the grad school and studying once again. So in many years later, I was working with Study Smart Tutors, and we are implementing partner for Hatching Results, that we get to get this beautiful, wonderful book and turn to a wonderful async courses for counselors to learn step by step and not to get overwhelmed with that one. So I'm going to talk about the platform. I'm going to talk about what are the courses, course name, what comes with the courses, and we'll give you a little bit video of from the platform. So 7 courses that we are offering. Each course offers a graduate credit from the Cal State San Marcos, along with the CEU unit, if that's what's the need. And these courses are designed around, again, like Mindy mentioned it, narrated video, reflection, lots of check for understanding, and lots of self-reflection. That's what I really like about it. So we all know that data is powerful, that we've been listening, Mindy, and then, but when understood and utilized correctly, it can be transformational to your school counseling program and the school community. So throughout these courses, a school counselor will reflect on their previous experience using the data, and then learn how to collect and analyze the data and create the goals. Not only to create, but then evaluate their counseling programs, and then take action from that, making it a data-informed decision. So counselors who complete these courses will not only believe in the value of using the data, they will develop knowledge and skills necessary to begin implementing some data-driven practice to improve their counseling programs. This is one of the example from the course number 1, data. It's the 5th lesson, is designed to be completed about 45 minutes to 1.5 hours. In the course, they have, again, the reflection, check for understanding, that I used to reinforce the text and the video in each respective lesson. So each lesson is introduced with the lesson objective, so counselor can familiarize themselves with the overall goal of each lesson. And finally, the most important component course is again, pre and post test, used to determine the efficacy of the course. We preach about the pre and post for you to do it with your students. We are also doing it in our platform to see how you understand the course and how your growth looks like in the courses. So in this one, I am going to show just a minute version of the video so you can see what's looking like in the platform. And this is where Dr. Julie Hartline is talking about the data. Mindy just mentioned it.
In order to evaluate outcomes, we have to know the different types of data that school counselors collect. The first is process data. also known as participation data in the 4th edition of the ASCA National Model. What is process data? It's essentially answering specific things about those interventions and lessons that you put in place. It's being able to explain the who did you service, when did you service it, what did you do for them, where did you do it, how long did you do it, with what did you do it. So all of those details that go into planning. And so when we think about process or participation data, we think of it as the what I did data, because it only tells what the school counselor has done. It doesn't tell you anything about how students are different as a result of what you do. It's impressive, but it doesn't answer the question, so what? Are students more likely to attend class, behave, improve their grades? Those are things that others care about. So if you can tell them how many classroom lessons you've done, or how many groups you've done, or how many parents you've talked to, and that's been something that counselors have done for years, that's great. But then there's the question, so what? Which is going to take us into the other types of data. But first, just to share an example.
I really like that. The so what. I know it's kind of sounds rude and not really validating, but it is the reality. I've done this, I did this, and then they want to know, so what? So this is one of the example. Again, it starts with the warm-up question, followed by the video, and then the activity. The lesson is the types of the data, and then the data design, implementation, evaluate, and improve their comprehensive school program. I love this warm-up question. How have you used your school data in the past to drive your school counseling program? Also, in what ways, if any, has getting access to data been barrier to use the data to drive your program? So if you are the school counselor leader in the room, I know many of you, with this question, with this warm-up question, with the reflection that you will be able to read it from your counselor to understand, because we know that data is deeply embedded in the complex school level, district level, even the state level system. So school counselor taking this course may notice and then elevate their leadership very systems issue. Maybe a school counselor you might hear something like, we don't know how to find that data, or I don't have a permission to access that data. Or you may hear something, data isn't accurate, or our teachers don't log that data. So data report isn't useful or meaningful. So you as the leader in the room, to be able to hear and understand the issues, your counselors are reflecting in this course. So let me show you a little bit about the platform data in engagement. So platform is interactive, which have the text fields. Counselor will reflect, answer, and then whoever is the leader, or we can design it with the district, with the school itself, that you will be able to see the data, which is how many times they log in, what's their completion rate, what's their reflection. And we can even, Jimmy will talk about it in a second, to using a different version of it, so we can use this conversation and courses in your regular PD time. But the platform offers the interactive, personalized, and you can either use collaborative or individual learning. And as the leader in the room, or the leadership with the school district, that you will be able to get the 4 different data with just one click. It's the grader report, pre and post course survey, activation completion, and activity login. It's easy as, again, the one click for you to see how is that going, what is the engagement looks like, how is the growth look like in your district, in your community for the school counselor. Some of the notes that from the other partners that we done in the past, what are they saying? I'll give you a second to look. My favorite should be the counselor, but I really like the teacher reflection here. And this is done, I believe, this summer. The teacher is saying, my whole entire view of counseling job has changed due to this course. I have done over 100 hours in training this summer, and this course has been the most helpful for me to understand how I can support students from a teacher perspective and how I can better work with my counseling team. I really like that reflection. Maybe it's a personal connection that I have with the teacher while I was practicing counseling, and many other reflection that you will able to see it. And then the lastly that I'll close up, this is again, can be in-person, virtual, hybrids, whatever that you want to design it. And then it's also available in any device that you can use it, the desktop, laptops, or tablets. It's very user-friendly for them to do it. With that, I'm going to pass back to Mindy.
Okay, thanks. So some folks have said when we reached out, well, this is great, but we use the Ask a National model. We want to make sure that all of our training is aligned to the Ask a National model. Absolutely, we all agree. That is the foundation and the backbone to our school counseling programs. And so here we really outline this, and this might be particularly helpful for some of you district coordinators or directors or counselors that want to make a case for how this connects to this framework. So for each section or each course within the pathway, we identified the school counselor competencies that are a part of the Ask a National model. And then we also identified what are the takeaways, what are the things that you will walk away with that you can start using tomorrow. And those are listed there in that column. So this is a full document that we'll drop in the chat for you to be able to see if you need this to help you kind of wrap your head around what the courses are and how they align to the model more. All right. The next, go ahead. There we go. One of my favorite things, I love teaching about results reports and teaching the flashlight approach. So in course 5, we teach folks how to create these beautiful results reports. So again, using data helps us to know if what we're doing is making the impact on students that we hope that it's making. And so we teach folks not only how to write pre and post tests and how to collect that data, but how to create a report that you can give to your principal, your superintendent, your director, and we even have a slide deck template that you can use to present to your school board or your PTO on. So this is an example of a one-pager report. And you can see here very clearly the charts and the graphs really show the impact that the counseling program had on students. We teach you step by step how to where to click and what to do, how to make these pretty charts and graphs. And then it also explains here, this is what the counselors did to make this impact. You've probably all seen something similar to this. If you're on Pinterest or you've been around, a lot of people do this, but they stop at process data. That first part there on the left says, well, I talked to 4,509 students. I went to 14 different classrooms. I did 123 individual learning plans. And so back to Julie's case, great. So what? So what? You're busy. So what, the counselor's being busy, you're busy being busy. So we have to move into that perception data and that outcome data to really show, so what, as a result of all of these things that I'm doing, this is how students are different. Okay. And so this part is really fun. And we've got a lot of great templates to share with you. Here's some more examples of what this might look like. So imagine for me as a district director or coordinator, if I had one of these, the amount of advocacy I could do for my school counselors to show, you like this? Do you like this impact? Do you want more? Would you like more data like this? Then let's get those counselors off the playground 7 days a week or 5 days a week. Then let's talk about 504 plan coordination. If you want to move the needle on attendance rates and you want counselors to support that goal, then we've got to talk about some of these other things that are on their plates. Data speaks. And these flashlight presentations, these one-pagers are really helpful for you in not only advocacy, but it helps us as school counselors. You know, we've all had those days where we walk away going, what did I even do today? Starbucks is hiring. Awesome. Like, that sounds amazing. I just want to make lattes all day. Like, I'm not even like making an impact on kids. We've had those days. And so when we can step back at the end of the year or the end of a semester and see these numbers with our own eyes in front of us, we can say, it was all worth it. Oh my gosh, look at the impact that I'm having, that my school counseling program is having on students. I'm not just spinning my wheels. I'm not just here like running a rat race. I'm really moving the needle here, not just on 1 or 2 kids, but on the entire school. So these are, I'll say it, data can be self-care, y'all. I said it, I'll stand by it. It can be self-care. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about how to implement these courses on either the district or the school level. These courses are designed to be used in multiple ways. So, of course, they can be done fully asynchronously, as we've mentioned, and we've had a lot of interest from individual school counselors who might need professional development, credits or CEUs for recertification. But what you see here is a pacing framework for a hybrid style program. And as a lot of you were saying in the chat, you have PD that you already do, either monthly or whatever it is. And this is something that you'd be able to do in those monthly PDs as well. So it's kind of a hybrid asynchronous synchronous. So you can see asynchronously, the counselors would be able to do some of the readings, activities, watch the videos and things on their own. But then there's I think a lot of value then when the group comes together to talk about those key takeaways and have discussions about the discussion questions, go over the activities. And then the really important thing is the goal setting and then the implementation, because as we're talking about, these courses are really meant for you to go, or your counselors to be able to go and implement these things into their school counseling program. So we're happy to talk to you about what some of these hybrid options might look like. And then here on this slide, we've laid out the 7 courses in the data pathway just to give you an idea here. Again, you can see the first 2 columns that each course aligns to the ASCA model. And then on the right, to give you an idea, you can see the whole pathway would take about 115 hours or so. So there's definitely plenty of content. And I know in North Carolina, school counselors need 80 hours of PD for recertification. But depending on the school counselor's experience level, we have seen some new school counselors do the whole pathway in a year, if they need that for their certification or their training. But I would say, based on the typical amount of PD that districts and schools do, maybe choosing 2 or 3 of the courses to do over the course of the year would be your best bet. And of course, we would work with you on understanding which courses might fit best with the goals for your school counseling program. Next slide. Okay. So we haven't talked about this. We do have one additional pathway as well. It's specifically targeted towards middle school counselors or anyone who works with middle school students. And we've built a 3-course pathway to specifically help you all support your middle school students in preparing for college and for post-secondary. I'm a big believer, truly, it's never too early to start preparing students for what comes after high school, whether it's college or their career. And then if any of you have, experience or at your schools with experience with Gear Up, Trio, Upward Bound, those college access programs, we've done a lot of work in that space as well. And we're hearing from a lot of people that they want to start working with their middle school students on getting them ready for college and high school, then college and career. But of course, time and resources are always limited. So we've developed this 3-course pathway here. You can see the first course, kind of just the first course, middle school, post-secondary readiness. But then in course 2 and 3, we're getting really into the program development and implementing the program, which I think is really the great part. So if you think that might be of interest to you as well, we're more than happy to talk to you about that and share more information. So that is the end of the formal slide presentation. Of course, we still have our facilitators here, so we will open it up for questions in a moment. I want you to think about questions you might have, throw those in the chat. But first, I just want to remind everybody that this webinar is being recorded. So we will send it out afterwards along with the slide deck, and you can see our information here. You can reach out if you do have any questions about anything. And then second, I did once again want to thank Keisha so much for partnering with us here. Keisha, you do such amazing work. I know that you're all over the state working with a ton of different districts, and that's evidenced by the great turnout we had here today. So once again, just thank you for having us here today. And then, yeah, I'll open it up to any questions that anybody might have. We'll try and answer those for you now. Still got 6 minutes, so feel free to type those into the chat. Well, I see some people starting to leave. Again, feel free to stick around. But thank you all. Thank you all for joining us today, for your time and for spending your lunch hour with us if you're on the East Coast.
All right.
Wonderful.
Any
Yeah,
questions?
thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.